Handoff, Damian Williams trying to get to the edge, breaks a tackle, 35, 30, Damian Williams, 20, stays in bounds, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Kansas City, Damian Williams runs to immortality and will be remembered forever.
In evaluating the Chiefs' running back position heading into 2020, the conversation starts with the guy who was arguably one of the best 5 players on the field in the Super Bowl, Damian Williams, who finished the biggest game in franchise history over the past 50 years with 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was at his best in the biggest of moments. In 11 regular season games, Williams had 498 yards and 5 touchdowns, but in the 3 postseason games, he stepped up with 290 yards from scrimmage and 6 touchdowns. Now with 10 touchdowns scored in the playoffs during his 2 seasons in Kansas City, Williams now has the franchise record for most playoff points scored in his career. The 28-year-old Super Bowl hero is scheduled to become a free agent after the 2020 season. So he joins Darrell Williams, who comes back after injuring his hamstring in Week 13 against the Raiders and then was placed on injured reserve, but not before Williams accumulated more than 300 total yards from scrimmage with 4 touchdowns, averaging more than 11 yards per reception out of the backfield, as the 2 most experienced players, Williams and Williams, returned for the Chiefs at running back. And Darwan Thompson, last year's 6th-round pick out of Utah State, picked up 177 total yards last year in his debut. The Chiefs also reportedly just recently added former Raiders 5th-round pick from 2016, DeAndre Washington, who's a college teammate of Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, who has 1,700 yards from scrimmage and 8 touchdowns in his 4-year career. Now, Elijah McGuire and Mike Weber both signed futures deals this offseason to round out the 6 running backs currently on the Chiefs roster. In looking at this group over the past 7 years under Andy Reid, there have been 5 different players who have played the most snaps at the running back position within those 7 seasons, from Jamal Charles to Sharkandrick West to Spencer Ware, Kareem Hunt, and then Damian Williams last year, but Williams still played less than 400 total snaps on the regular season. Whether it's because of injury or just a running back by committee approach, the Chiefs have only had 2 running backs under Reid who played more than 55% of the snaps in their games when healthy during that time. That's Jamal Charles and Kareem Hunt. So if they wanted to bring in a featured running back in this draft, here are a few options. Wisconsin's Jonathan Taylor is the most decorated running back in this draft. Back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons for the Badgers, and that's only been done one other time in NCAA history. He's a 3-time All-American and a 2-time winner of the Doak Walker Award, which is given to the nation's top running back. He ranked 3rd in the nation in both missed tackles forced last year with 87, so he's elusive, but he also had the 3rd most yards after contact of all NCAA running backs last year, so he's tough. And he carried the ball more than 300 times in each of the past 3 seasons. Now, another workhorse running back in this draft is LSU's Clyde EdwardsHelaire, who rushed for more than 1,400 yards with 16 touchdowns in the nation's best football conference last year, helping LSU to an undefeated national title season, adding nearly 500 yards and 55 receptions on the year as well. He was a first-team All-SEC selection. Ohio State's J.K. Dobbins will also be one of the first running backs to hear his name called next week. He finished his junior season for the Buckeyes as one of just 3 FBS backs to rush for at least 2,000 yards, finishing with 301 carries for 2,003 yards, which was good for a 6.7 yards per carry average. He was also among the nation's leaders with 21 rushing touchdowns. And finally, Georgia's DeAndre Swift may be the most explosive running back in this draft. And despite a shoulder injury that bothered him throughout last season, Swift still managed to become a first-team All-SEC player who finished with 196 carries for 1,218 yards and 7 touchdowns, adding 24 receptions for 216 yards and a score through the air as well. Now Swift, just like these other 3 running backs, should hear his name called within the first 2 rounds of the draft next week.